Hey guys, Cainebourne back with the Elder Scrolls Online. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about the different dungeon types in ESO. But first I'd like to start by making a distinction between non-instanced and instanced dungeons. Non-instanced dungeons are normal parts of the world that you can just walk inside of. You'll see the guy that's walking in at the same time as you. You'll meet other players in there. You can team up with people, group up with people. All sorts of interactivity with the community is allowed, and you're going to see it. This is how all dungeon content used to be in MMOs back in the day, in my day. I'm dating myself a little bit there, but that became a problem after a while as they got more and more popular, specifically in games like ESO where you have a one-world server, because then you would see way too many people in there. They'd be spawn camping certain drops. It wouldn't work with the number of players that we have nowadays. Next, you have instance dungeons. Instance dungeons are your own little private instance or version, or if you're in a sci-fi, a separate dimension. It's made just specifically for you and your group. So nobody else can show up inside there. You're not going to find other players, and only what your group does affects that version of the dungeon. That might have been a little bit of a long-winded explanation, but I'm assuming that there might be some total noobs to ESO or MMOs in general, so I thought I should just cover that very quickly. Now let's open up the map and actually talk about the different dungeon types, which is the focus of this video. First, we have these little torches here, which represent delves. Delves are solo dungeons, or they're meant to be. You can certainly team up with some other people and tackle this as group content and have fun with it, but it is not going to become more difficult. It's not going to scale with your group, so it's geared specifically for more solo people. Each one has a sky shard, which is a crystal that when you pick up 3 of them is going to give you a skill point, and each one also has a mini boss, which gives you a decent amount of EXP as well as an achievement. So as you're running around questing and doing normal things, you're going to want to hit up all the delves, and it's a great way to make EXP and get some extra skill points and such. And they're pretty fun. A lot of them are really nice. Next would be public dungeons. Public dungeons are these cave icons on the map, and I'm going to scroll in because the quest marker was blocking it here, but that's what I'm hovering over right now. A group dungeon is basically like a supersized delve. It's going to be bigger, it's going to be deeper, there's going to be multiple bosses. It still does not scale. You would probably want to have a group in there, but you'll probably also be able to find people inside that will help you. There's multiple quests inside generally, and there's going to be one sky shard still, and then multiple bosses, and all of them have achievements and the experiences I mentioned. So again, just a bigger version of a delve. After that, we're going to talk about group dungeons. Group dungeons are on the map like this here. I guess you would call this sort of like just like a doorway with a plus sign next to it. You're not going to walk up to those a whole lot. Mainly you're going to be queuing for them with the group finder system in the game, and I will show you that in just a second. But first I'd like to break down the dungeons themselves. Group dungeons are instanced, so it's just for you and your group. They are designed for 4 players. You should have a healer, a tank, and 2 DPS to be most effective. Will you sometimes not play exactly that way? Will you not be able to necessarily find a tank or a healer sometimes and be able to just burst it down with DPS? Absolutely. As you're stronger, you might even be able to 3-man or 2-man them. But the recommended way is the 4 players with those class types. I'm not going to talk a lot about the loot in these different areas. I'm just talking about the basic mechanics. If you want to know more about loot in each dungeon type, you should watch a video I will link in the description. It is the different armor set types and where to get them. So that'll be in the description. Primarily here I'm just talking about the variations in the dungeons themselves. Next would be veteran group dungeons, and it is exactly the same thing in the same place, and everything is identical except it is much more difficult. Typically, if you're going to want to do a veteran version of a group dungeon, you're going to want to be champion level 160 and have champion level 160 gear. There's exceptions to the rules. You can be carried through with much higher characters, but in general, you're not going to want to do these until you have that type of gear. Instead of getting purple drops, you're going to get, instead of getting blue drops like you do in the normal version, you'll get purple in the veteran version. So that is the preferred reason of why people end up wanting to do those, among other reasons. Let's show you this group tab real quick up here. and I'll show you how you queue up. These are the different roles. So me, by default, I'm queued up as damage, but let's say I switch profiles and I want to go as a healer or a tank, I can switch it here. Right here would be clicking on the dungeon finder portion would be ideal here because there are other options for group roles. Up in this tab here, you can either do veteran, normal, or a specific dungeon, and you can scroll through the list of all dungeons. And again, I would keep that on normal if you're just kind of grinding out dungeons, because you do get a skill point the first time you complete each dungeon, so that's cool. And you also, for your first dungeon of the day that's random, you get 101,000 and change bonus EXP. So if you're just doing it that way, do normal. When you're higher level and better gear, you will go into veteran. So that's how you're going to be queuing for them. So you're not going to see them a lot on the map, but I wanted you still to know what they look like and how to find them. After that, there are trials. And trials just above here, and I'm actually standing at one in-game, are the doorway with the plus sign, but then they have this ominous-looking skeleton with the horns. That is for good reason. Trials are very, very difficult. They're 12-person content. They're basically like raids in other games. They're going to take a lot of coordination. You're going to want to practice. There's going to be some setup. You're going to have all the right components in order to be able to beat them. Sometimes they can be brute force. Some of the earlier ones, particularly trials and DLC, good luck. They're very, very difficult. And you can also do these on sort of a hard mode or veteran mode, so infinitely more difficult. So that is another type of dungeon that you're going to tackle. Then finally, there's a whole nother zone called Cainebourne, which is a high-end zone. It basically is just a group zone, so when you go up to the delves and stuff like that, they're already set up or meant or geared for groups. They're just like normal delves where they have the Sky Shard and the achievement for killing the boss and stuff, but they're just way more difficult in Cainebourne. And then I did say finally, but I lied, because there's also the arenas. There's the Dragonstorm and the Maelstrom Arena, and those are 4-person instanced dungeons or arenas more. And basically they have multiple levels and waves of monsters that you have to fight through. So those are the different dungeon types in ESO. If you guys have any questions remaining, if I wasn't clear on anything, if there is more detail, if there's something that I missed and you want to add it, please leave all of that information in the comments. I try to answer as quickly as possible. Both my iPhone and my Droid get push notifications from YouTube, and as most of my subscribers can attest to you guys, I try to answer questions as quick as humanly possible. I've been pretty thorough with my beginner's guides at this point. I'm still finding stuff here and there that sounds like it's a good idea to cover to fill some gaps. But I'd like to know what you guys want to see next. Please also let me know in the comments what type of guides you'd like to see me make. I will literally make almost anything. Heck, I've covered fishing in depth with almost a 10-15 minute video I think was pretty awesome. All kinds of stuff. Let me know what you guys want to see, or maybe you want me to move on to some more advanced stuff. Please let me know. As always, thank you so much for watching the channel, and I appreciate it greatly. I wanted to add as a quick footnote, there are also the Undaunted Pledges, which you can receive at the Undaunted Enclaves. I cover this completely in a separate video, which is called Undaunted Pledges Explained. So I'll link that in the description as well, and you can watch it. But basically, it gives you an additional quest when you're going inside of the normal group dungeons, whether they're normal or veteran. And all of that is covered in that video, so you should check that out as well.